Similar to Volkswagen, sometimes in life we drive into a dead end. So what we do to get out of it is usually you reverse your car, you steer the other direction, and then you drive off to get to where you want to go quickly. In that same manner, our reverse, steer, and drive strategy today will aim to bring Volkswagen out of this period of crisis in a sustainable manner and achieve success in the future days to come. A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joel. These are my teammates Sharon, Mazuk, and Tuyen. Thank you for having us here in this great city. So without ado, we first look at the entire chain of our stakeholders that are interested. We are interested in looking at. First, we see our research and development on the left, and that's of course in Volkswagen. Secondly, manufacturing, our suppliers. Thirdly, compliance. The government is ensuring that we meet our technical standards. And lastly, marketing and sales, which care about how we market our brand and of course what consumers, the end consumers, think about Volkswagen itself. We see they have each different concerns or wants. For R&D, you always want to develop a technical advantage, as CEO Müller has expressly stated. Secondly, for manufacturing, you want to increase sales and reputation, and therefore, if Volkswagen does well, it has more sales. If Volkswagen's reputation is hurt, its reputation is hurt as well. Lastly, compliance, of course, you want to meet the regulations. And importantly, for end consumers, they want to have faith in the brand as a whole and confidence in the technical capabilities of each car that Volkswagen produces. So we see a key issue. The first key issue here is how do we incentivize and monitor to achieve the ethical behavior that we so desire. What this will do is an internal focus where you ensure that our suppliers are kept happy and we meet the compliance regulations from the government. Secondly, we want to look at how do we communicate this message, because after we change internally, we need our external parties to be cognizant of what we are doing. And lastly, of course, no business is successful if you cannot guarantee or you cannot have a strategy for sustainable success in the future. So what strategy should we then employ? But before we get into the fun stuff of our recommendation, we first take a step back and try to understand beyond the surface issue of rebuilding trust. There's a buzzword thrown around, but this is how we see it as a team. First, a small circle here is technical confidence. What Volkswagen has done so far is to try to imbue technical confidence by buying back the cars, by making sure they repair the defects and stop using its defeat devices in its tests. However, we see it's under a broad framework which it has not fully addressed, which is the faith in the brand of Volkswagen itself. So firstly, internally, we see two things: incentives and monitoring. The top management is still purely incentivized by profits. The earlier CEO, Mr. Winterburn, has set aggressive sales targets and has not placed too much emphasis on ensuring the engineers have the technical feasibility to be able to meet the growing demand for that particular brand of cars. Secondly, we see that they want to be the top of the technical leadership. So the top management also decides targets such as 30% carbon dioxide reduction, and which later we found out that engineers felt were not feasible, but they were doing it because the top management were putting pressure on them. Secondly, monitoring is clearly inadequate. In the case, it mentions that there were actually reports from suppliers and employees that were completely ignored. So it's not only inadequate, it's completely, probably non-existent in the way that we want it to be. These are the internal changes we look to make. Secondly, we cannot forget, as I mentioned earlier, the external changes. So far, the communication has been inconsistent. What clients or what the general public want to hear is a bit of contriteness, a bit of the CEO being sorry, but however, the messages have been a little mixed, and there's something we can work on as well. And lastly, to underpin all of this, we need long-term success. If we optimize our business strategy, we will have the necessary wherewithal to tide us through this crisis and also build faith in our brand in the long term. Therefore, we present to you our strategy of reverse, steer, and drive. We want to reverse our misaligned focus, steer an effective communication strategy to external parties, and of course, drive sustainable growth for the future.
Through our first strategy, we aim to reverse our internal focus to promote a culture that incentivizes our employee and our company-wide staff for an ethical behavior. At the same time, what we want to achieve for our first strategy is to ensure effective monitoring in our entire company. And so, with this, when we look at our current situation, we realize that our top management are bottom line focused, and therefore they set unrealistic sales target. And therefore, what we need to do is to tie in their performance and how we assess their performance to non-monetary incentives, such as by assessing their performance based on environmental standards, such as the amount of emissions that they reduce and also their progress towards achieving these standards. And so, under our first strategy, we propose in hiring a external third party consisting of a group of researchers and environmental advocates to firstly ensure that top management set realistic environmental goals throughout company-wide. So these external third parties will act as a form of China wall between top management, and this is to avoid any unethical collaboration that might potentially occur. And so what will happen is that before top management implements a certain set of environmental standards or environmental goals throughout the company, they will have to pass it by these external parties to ensure that they will be feasible, because they are the ones equipped with the expertise as well as the knowledge on the industry as well as the technology. And once it has been approved by these third parties, then it will be implemented through the company-wide. After it's been implemented, these external third parties will act to monitor the progress as well as the compliance of the rest of the departments within the company, and ensuring that they are progressing towards these goals at the same time as they are moving in line to the compliance of these standards set. And so, moving on to our second strategy, we need to steer our external communication to ensure that it is effective in restoring trust that we've lost in the public through the scandal. And with this second steer strategy, we've identified two key stakeholders, and they are our end consumers as well as our government bodies. And in focusing on our end consumers, we need to first communicate to them our change of commitment. Once we've undergone the internal change in our commitment towards greater ethical and environmental behavior, we need to ensure that our communication and our message towards our end public remains consistent. At the same time, this will include changing the key message of our senior management to the public through interviews, showing them that we are really committed to this radical change. At the same time, that we are truly regret and we apologize for what has occurred during the scandal. So what we propose to be going down for open door interviews with senior management in Volkswagen research centers or manufacturing centers. Another aspect that we want to focus in our communication towards our end consumers is safety. We need to ensure that our end consumers believe that our cars are safe to drive in. And one effective way that we propose is conducting test drives with our media, such as inviting reporters from famous media outlets such as Top Gear or Bloomberg, ensuring that they are able to test out our product, at the same time inform the public that our products and our vehicles are safe, and at the same time that they will be able to promise a great satisfactory consumer experience. And in looking at our second stakeholder, our governmental bodies, we need to restore the relationship with them, and this is done firstly by giving them greater access to our internal reports. At the same time, greater access to our facilities for them to be able to monitor, as well as at the same time gain a better picture of the commitment that we have towards implementing these new environmental changes. At the same time, we want to ensure that there is constant communication channel between Volkswagen, between our senior managers, at the same time with these governmental bodies. The last thing that we need to do is to increase the lead time of our reporting standards, and this we believe will restore the relationship with our governmental bodies to show that we are executing this greater commitment towards ethical and environmental behavior. So through our first two strategies, through our steer strategy to our reverse strategy, we're changing our internal focus to ensure that our company is fully committed towards ethical behavior, moving towards environmental sustainability. And once we've undergone this internal change, we need to ensure that we've gained an external recognition from the public, and this is achieved through our steer strategy to ensure that we're able to gain the trust from the public to be able to secure our demand from our end consumers.
Ladies and gentlemen, now that we've looked at reverse, steer, let us look at how we can drive to a sustainable future for Volkswagen. And that really looks at choosing the right markets for Volkswagen to play in. If you look at our current three markets of Europe, China, and USA, within Europe, Volkswagen already has a strong foothold, being a market leader with its diesel car sales. Also, at the same time, it acknowledges that China is a fast-growing market which accounts for 30% of its sales right now at this point of time. And also, for the US market, it is faced with uncertainty in the form of the scandals that it has just gone through, as well as the pressure it's facing from the US EPA. And what we want to propose for Volkswagen to focus really on for the immediate future, as well as for the next decade to come, is to focus on the Chinese and USA markets as a future source of revenue, as these are the markets for Volkswagen to play in according to its trend. And for the Chinese market, we notice that there's a large demand of SUVs within the market because of increased affluence within the Chinese market. And right now, Volkswagen only has one SUV model catering to it. And what we propose for that, for the Chinese market, is to enhance this brand portfolio, extend its line of SUVs to cater to the increasing demand within the Chinese market. But going on more closer to where the current situation is, that Volkswagen is within USA, we notice that they are facing a lot of uncertainty and pressure from the regulators, and our strategy for them is to use this as an opportunity to really emerge as a leader within a new industry that we have identified, which is the electrical vehicle market. If you were to dig deeper and look at the US market itself right now, their sales are falling, as I previously mentioned, 12% drop, a 20% drop after the recent scandal announcement had been made. Secondly, they're also facing pressure from the regulatory authorities to perhaps take a settlement agreement where Volkswagen will build the next network of EV charging stations. And lastly, if you also notice, looking at the EV market itself, it's a very infant market with low penetration. But ladies and gentlemen, this presents uncertainty. But for a smart player who knows where and how to look, it also brings about opportunity. And that's the opportunity that we want to present to Volkswagen today with our drive strategy. And if you look at the EV market itself, there are three different types of players within the EV market. You have the HEV vehicles, you have the PHEV, as well as the BEV type of vehicles. So the HEV are hybrid electric vehicles, like a Toyota Prius, where you can see, for instance, the car battery is charged while the car is driven. Secondly, you have the plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, where the charging time takes a bit longer because you have to charge it overnight, usually at the residential area. And lastly, you have the BEV, which is in its nascent stage because the technology of a BEV vehicle requires a bit more charging time of 4 to 6 hours. And what we have identified is that while there are existing players like Toyota or Tesla in the PHEV and HEV market, the BEV market remains very in its infant stages, and that's something we want Volkswagen to be the emerging player and the brand to be recognized and associated with the BEV vehicles tomorrow. But going a step further, you have to first look at why is the BEV market in the nascent stage and within its infant stage as well. Now, meet Ryan, 40 years old, a typical American consumer whom we are targeting to attain the BEV vehicle. But if he wants to buy, he's already poised to buy an electric vehicle because he is environmentally conscious. Within the US, it's one of the two countries in the world where the government offers tax subsidies for its consumers to purchase electric vehicles. But a BEV vehicle is not his top line of consideration simply because of two factors, the range and the infrastructure. So for the range, the battery life of the BEV vehicles are such that they don't offer the kind of driving experience that he needs. He needs to go on the expressway and drive to a nearby city. He's not able to do that without having to stop in the middle for a charging station. And at the same time, infrastructure is a key problem because of the lack of charging stations across the US market to facilitate the growth, to facilitate the use of these BEV vehicles as well, which require a frequent charging of 4 to 6 hours. So what Volkswagen can do within the BEV market right away is to address these two key issues of range and infrastructure. So for the range, what we can do is collaborate with the current BEV battery producers to improve the technology of it. This is an emerging market where the standards for the technology have not been yet established. And through our R&D expertise and by collaborating with the existing partners, like we currently have Panasonic, LG, Samsung, who are collaborating with car manufacturers like Ford to actually currently produce the rechargeable batteries for the EV vehicles, and we want to be partnering them to pushing the frontiers of this technology and leading within it to solve the problems for end consumer in hand. Also, for the infrastructure as well, we can start building a network of EV charging stations that will be subsidized by the government, and this will help the government see us in a proactive one as taking initiative within the industry and meeting the standards. And the key benefits of really the drive strategies on two fronts is that we are agreeing on a settlement agreement with the government, and as well as not only meeting the standards but being an emerging player in an industry that they are promoting. And at the same time, this is going to be a sustainable revenue driver because it's one that it's not been established yet, and being the first mover in it would give us a huge revenue advantage for the years to come. And also, back to even our end consumer, it's going to push the frontiers of the technology and offer him a superior EV product for him in the years to come. So now that I've looked at the reverse, steer and drive strategies, what are some key risks that we thought of while we saw this? And firstly, in reversing, the culture of fail is something that takes time to actually eliminate, and hence if our strategies immediately don't work out, we have to continually try different variations to foster greater interaction between top level and senior level and bottom level staff. And also for a new market entry through our drive strategy, there's low reception, let's say, and hence we have to do it in a tiered approach, taking in a systematic manner. And also senior management, for the second strategy, the senior management may not be able to convey the message that we intend to, and we need to send them for the right kind of training to be able to present the message that we have intended.
So, reverse, steer, and drive. We'll look at these three strategies qualitatively. Now let's take a look at them quantitatively. So firstly, for reverse and also steer, we believe that the most important benefits from these two strategies are actually to help us to restore the faith in the consumers. If we look at the past car sales for Volkswagen in the past 5 years, from 2010 to 2014, they have actually achieved a 6.9% CAGR in terms of number of car sales worldwide. So, but because of the Dieselgate that opened in 2015, their CAGR actually dropped to 5%. But with this restore in terms of faith in consumers, we actually hope to be able to regain the past growth rate and restore it to 6% in the next 5 years, and achieve a sales of 14.5 million worldwide in the year 2020. And next, in terms of drive, so we actually focus more on China and also US. So in terms of China, because we're actually going to introduce a new SUV models, we actually expect that we can actually gain $1.6 million units of sales from China by the year 2020. And also this is going to contribute to us 2.04 billion in terms of profit from China market alone. These figures are actually projected because China's private consumption will grow at a rate of 5.6% in the next 5 years as data from Euromonitor. And hence we believe that there is strong potential in the Chinese market because the Chinese market is experiencing higher affluence. At the same time, if you look at US market, because we're actually going for the direction of improving the electric vehicle market as well as building the charging stations for US company, this actually allows us to perhaps be able to reduce the $40 billion in terms of fine. Because we look at it, $40 billion fine actually don't contribute to our revenue growth because that's just fine paid to the government. But if we actually agree to the settlement, we help to develop the EV market as well as build the charging stations, we're actually able to develop a new market in US market, and hence this amount of money paid out is actually contributing to our future growth as well. So finally, we have actually considered that both these strategies will include a lot of financing. And as mentioned in the case that because of the Dieselgate incident, Volkswagen is facing a decrease in terms of credit rating by Moody's, and hence the cost of financing is actually increasing. But if you look at our key strategies, reverse, steer, and also drive, we're actually able to restore the consumer confidence. We're able to achieve sustainable growth by exploring into the new market, and hence this is actually able to bring to us lower our company risk, improve our credit rating, and lower the cost of debt. At the same time, in terms of equity market, we believe that with a sustainable growth, it's actually able to improve the investor confidence, and it's also able to increase our stock price, and hence increase our market capitalization. And this is going to provide to us a solution to financing to allow us to carry out the three strategies. So finally, we also want to present to you our strategy implementation plan. We'll actually begin with the reverse strategy. We'll actually evaluate our current goals as well as the company culture. We'll develop the new KPIs set for the senior management as well as allow these impacts to trigger down to our lower management and lower staff to ensure that the new culture promotes a more ethical ways of doing business. And after that, we'll also be hiring the new experts. Then in terms of the steer strategy, we'll also be devising a new marketing plan to channel our new culture to the consumer to regain the image. And finally, in terms of the drive strategy, we're actually able to negotiate, we'll actually start with negotiating the government in terms of the settlement plan. And then after that, we'll move on to develop new plans to explore into China as well as eventually the EV markets. So finally, in the conclusion, we have actually presented to you our objective, our key issues, and our three strategies: reverse, steer, and drive. And hence, as well as the key benefits. And really, these three strategies is really the way to go for Volkswagen to overcome the current crisis and move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you want to start?
Sure, I'll start. Yeah. So I think you identified ethics as one of the key issues leading up to this crisis. You've recommended doing some things to help solve the ethical challenges the company's facing, such as hiring an external party to come in and set goals and sort of audit. Do you think that's enough? Because to me, it feels like there's really, in the DNA of this company, there's something wrong. The way that the governance is structured, the way that the leadership is structured, and even the way that they handled the crisis, bringing in somebody who's really an insider and not an outsider. So what are your thoughts on, are you really recommending enough to solve the ethical challenges there?
Well, we try to distill the problem down to the root factors. So we identified Mark 18 as one of the big factors by the earlier CEO that actually pushed for growth in spite of everything else. So to reverse it, we identified senior management as one of the key stakeholders that we had to identify. What our CEO Winterburn did was actually he increased the environmental standards without understanding the technical feasibility of it from his engineers. So it's kind of a top-down culture. So to reverse that, we wanted to introduce an external party to provide, a China wall external party, so there's no collaboration, to provide their imprimatur when senior management sets these targets. So if these targets are unrealistic, it will not put undue pressure on the engineers. We do not believe that ethical problem is due to us hiring unethical engineers, like only Volkswagen has unethical engineers compared to other companies. But believe it's a more top-down approach. So we decided to deal with the root cause by introducing the external party recognition.
I had a question on your communication strategy for the stakeholders that you identified. I think you identified two stakeholders. One is the end consumer group and the other is the government. Do you think there are any other stakeholders for communication beyond that?
There are definitely other stakeholders that we've considered, such as your auto dealers as well as your suppliers. But we believe that looking in the short-term perspective, that our end consumers are the drivers of the demand, and therefore these are the stakeholders that we need to approach and focus on currently at the moment. At the same time as our government, because before we release any new models, any new technology into the market, we need to ensure that we gain their approval. So these are the two key stakeholders we want to approach immediately. But we have considered other stakeholders, just our dealers, and we've considered that how we can promote better relationship with our dealers, considering the scandal, will be increasing the post-purchase services that we have collaborated with them.
In terms of Volkswagen's response to what happened at the time of the crisis, do you think that, to some extent they reacted in response to media claims and they paid out money and offered various forms of compensation in response to what the media generated? Or do you feel they responded correctly? They considered what the costs might be, what the right strategy to maintain loyalty might be. They thought of, who might face costs, whether it's a dealer, whether it's an owner of a car. Or do you think, as I said, it's really to do with media pressure and the media circus that went around what happened? Did they react calmly, or did they just react to what the press was saying?
I think one of the driving factors we read in the case is they did not initially even want to admit that there was fraud involved and cheating involved. They only finally assented or wanted to decide to admit after pressure was directly put on them saying, if you do not admit this, we will not allow your new cars into the market. So I think the driving factor is still a very business mindset where I'm caring about my bottom line, and if I can avoid that cost at all costs, I will do so. We take the point that the media played a big role in making a scandal worldwide. So wherever Volkswagen is, whether it's China, Europe, or America, you can't really run away. And that is a stronger impetus for it than to deal with it. And that's why we propose an external communication strategy as a whole prong of the approach, because we believe it's key then to communicating what you do internally around the world, because the media has made it so.
And just to add on that, on the moment, like how Joel just addressed earlier, that Volkswagen is being seen as reacting in the sense of they are assuring the public of the technical expertise. And a case that we looked at for, let's say, crisis management was Domino's in the USA 2 years ago, when the kitchens was spotted to have cockroaches and someone uploaded a video of it. And what happened within 2 days was the CEO was seen at the ground with his sleeves rolled up, losing the suit, and he assured the consumers that, oh, we are going to change everything we can and improve these standards to regain and deliver the service that we provided. And hence, with our recommendation, what we wanted to do was, they are doing great, they have the quality, but you need to communicate this quality to your customers and consumers in mind, and that's essentially the trust of our secondary edge.
Just one other thing. In terms of the various stakeholders involved, I think maybe there wasn't the right balance beforehand. Maybe the management focused too much on the bottom line and the P&L, and maybe the other members of the supervisory board, they were too focused only on job security. And therefore, when the management wanted to do something, the employees could do it as long as they kept the jobs.
Yeah.
That was fine. But do you think in what you're proposing, there was a danger in going too much to the other extreme, which is not focusing enough on things like P&L, which is still important. We can focus on satisfying the government and the environmentalists and maintaining jobs, but we also need to make money. Otherwise, we can't have any jobs.
Yeah.
So do you think there's a danger in going too much to the extreme in what you're proposing for the strategy?
And that's why I think essentially we decided to have the drive element as our three-part strategy, because we realized that yes, there are different markets and every car producer is going to acknowledge that, but within the different markets, there's a different tailored strategy for it. For instance, the focus on environment, being environmentally conscious, pushing into the EV market was one that we saw very urgent in the US market because the market is ready for it. But however, in the Chinese market, the standard gasoline as well as the traditional SUVs and sedans are still going to be popular for the next 5 to 7 years to come. And we foresee that this is something they already have strengths in that area, and that's hence in that market that'll be the focus. And essentially that's how we felt, by choosing the right markets and playing according to your strengths. And of course, going back to your values of when Volkswagen first started, they said, their tagline was this: strength through joy car. And we felt that through our second strategy, by reminding our employees that the strength in terms of the excellence that we give in our service, as well as the joy and the pride that we can do, and the right markets, we can propel Volkswagen to the growth that they need.
Maybe I can add on to that. So initially, their concern was very much on the bottom line. So he set a goal by 2018, I'm going to achieve 10 million unit sales, and we're going to achieve an 8% profit margin. But we believe that a crucial our strategy is not that we're going to totally change the performance assessment indicator from a bottom line way from a financial way to a non-financial way. It can be a combination of both. So at the same time, you have a revenue growth. That's why we have the growth strategy, the drive strategy. So we project an increase in terms of sales in China and US. And same way, we also have the other side of indicators, which is non-financial, in terms of how much the employees can actually feedback to the management, how the management can actually manage the whole company in a way that's more ethical than before. Yes.
Just going back to the financials part and the cost element of your proposed strategy.
Yes.
In terms of the technology, the R&D, hiring a third party, do you have a proposal of how you're going to cover that cost?
We didn't come up with a specific number to project this cost because in the case there was significant lack of information on how much this will cost, so we believe that's not accurate.
Mm-hmm.
So instead we give an approach by proposing how they can obtain financing in an easier way. So that's why we addressed in the last slide on the financial, we actually addressed that by using the reverse steer and drive strategy, they're able to resolve some of the risks the company is currently facing, and hence the credit rating should technically be able to improve, and hence the cost of financing will be lower. And also at the same time, we believe that investor confidence can be improved, and hence the cost of equity can be lower. And hence, if we combine these two together, cost of capital will be lower. And hence, we believe that that's one way by which they can actually address the financing requirements because the cost will be lower. Yes.
Just going back to the investor confidence angle. So when you talk about communication, how would you communicate with investors?
Yeah, sure. So I think as Sharon has mentioned, so one part of the communication is really invite a lot of the columnists to actually come down from Bloomberg, from most of the newspapers and online media. So this news reporters can actually come down to help report how we have changed the company towards a better way to the end consumers. So because I'm pretty much a tech fan, so I watch YouTube. So I've seen that Audi launched the i8, I think it's the i8, this new electric car, and they invited a lot of the YouTube channelists to actually feature them. So one of the channel owner was, I think it's MKHD. So he actually featured how he drives the car, he actually went to the factory. He actually got he actually got an interview with the CEO, and he featured on YouTube. It was very good publicity because a lot of follow-up on those. So yeah, that's how we can actually convey our message to end consumers on how we actually improve the company.
If I can add on to the shareholders specifically, I think the shareholders are very concerned, not only the public image, but also what you're doing internally.
Correct.
So we see our reverse strategy, we focus on very internal changes,
Yes.
very hard changes, not the soft approach of changing the monitoring and changing the kind of incentives we want our employees to be able to meet the goals of not only profitability and also environmental sustainability. I think the shareholders will be very attuned or very keen in finding out more about what we are doing inside to ensure we don't make the same mistakes again. And they'll be kept abreast of these news, of course, through general meetings and of course the kind of shareholder news reports that they might get. But it's important that we make the hard changes first, and that's why we put reverse as our first strategy before telling others what our shareholders would already know about our company.
Yes.
I've got a question on the growth strategy. So they've always been known as a company building diesel cars. Now you're suggesting they go another angle and really focus on electric cars for the US market. You've also recommended that they do a different strategy to enter China through portfolio expansion. Do you think it's feasible or realistic to go after both of these strategies? Or which one would you, if you can only do one, which one would you recommend and why?
If we had to just pick one, I think the immediate solution would be to focus our efforts in the US market of what we had just mentioned, because providing, let's say, additional SUVs in the Chinese market, this is within their current capabilities. And for Europe, we said maintain the status quo, because yes, the diesels are the biggest contributor to the revenue. But what we felt was that if you take 5 years down the road, that situation is going to change. The demand factors are totally going to be different. If the EV market kicks off, then USA, and if you're not a player there, you would lose out. And the Chinese market, the demand of, let's say, SUVs and sedans is set to grow. Hence, but if you had to immediately do one thing tomorrow, I think the US market is important because of the key stakeholder, the government, they're putting pressure on us and wanting us to see that we're meeting the requirements. And by taking the initiative and leading, let's say, building of charging stations, and when people see us for that, that's going to bring a whole lot of confidence to the Volkswagen brand.
Let me just add a quick point. I think the fines are not unsubstantial. I think they are massive. So the US government has provided sort of a way out, a settlement agreement if we do this. And we've identified that this can also help our business. So I think it's a win-win approach for us, and it's something we should do. The low-hanging fruit we should go for. Yes.
I think there's some good ideas on the future strategy and the future business approach. But I just wonder, in terms of the corporate culture, where you still have links to government ownership, where you still have very strong employee representation, do you think that really a way to change the culture, given the structure of the management, given the structure of the board, is it really possible? So we may have success with the new strategies, but next time with some issue like this, will the same thing not just happen again? Because you can't really change that structure very easily.
Maybe I'll add on to you. So we believe that when we reach for the case, I think one of the most important focus of the union members of the board is that to maintain jobs, basically. So our strategy didn't involve cutting jobs. And it was mentioned that as long as we don't reduce the jobs for the local employees, they're pretty much free. They will let the end management to manage the company freely. So we believe that it shouldn't interfere with our strategies significantly. Yes.
Just quick add on again, apologize. Incentive and monitor, I think we're using carrot stick.
Yes.
We understand in our discussion that just trying to change it in a soft manner, the culture might not last. After you change the CEO, you change the management. So the carrot would be, of course, the correct incentives to drive behavior. The stick, of course, is monitoring. So if you don't have accurate targets, environmentally feasible targets, you're not even going to get approved targets here in management. So that will have a system where you can last beyond just one management team, where culture might change from transitions between CEOs, etc.
One last question then. In a situation like this, when they hit the crisis, the CEO famously took a couple of days to respond. Is that the right thing to do in a crisis? Should you go out there and say, I'm very sorry, I'm going to look into it, I'm going to fix it? Or should you wait until you have some more facts and then you can give some more detail?
I think a very pertinent example, a tragic one, would be the Air Asia crash recently. I think you saw CEO Tony Fernandez from Malaysia. The next day on television, he was sobbing in front of the television crew. None of us know whether it's real or crocodile fake tears, but why it was powerful is that even though the cause or the blame might not even have been on AirAsia. He took responsibility solely because it was his company. I think the public in general does not want to hear the reasons or the technical differences, whether 80,000 was sport or 60,000 was sport. They want to hear first a sense of contriteness, regret, and a commitment that it will never happen again. I think a CEO should first drive that message and then look at the tactics to solve it.